Hi guys, Jordan from B&B Campers. I'm just going to do your handover video on your Lunar Telstar. It's a Telstar GT pack, which, you know, from new, basically had a few extra bits and pieces on the inside. So under the bonnet here, we've got your brake fluid attached to the servo just there behind it. Just for future reference, if you ever had any problems with fuel getting through, not that this particular one has ever had this problem before, just point out to you, this is a little fuel priming bulb, so you can actually squeeze that to allow the fuel to go through. It's just a typical Renault thing to do. I just thought I'd point out to you what that is. It's a fuel priming bulb. Anyway, so you've got your power steering fluid in this reservoir here at the front, washer fluid, engine oil gets topped up through here, and if I just take that off, you can see there, no nasty looking oil. It's all nice clean oil. No kind of milky stuff in there, which is good, means no water's getting in the engine. And your engine oil dipstick is the yellow topped one just down there. Your engine coolant is this reservoir just here. The air filter sits inside this box just here at the top. Because it's an automatic, you've got automatic transmission fluid level and transmission fluid reservoir there, I believe, as well. Yeah, so that's all to do with the automatic stuff. The engine battery sits under the floor in the cab, so if you want to jump start the vehicle, you've got a positive terminal just here, and an earthing point. You could use this just here, or there's probably a specific one that's made for jump starting somewhere, but I'm not exactly sure where that is. No, so basically positive on there, and then either of these two would be a decent earth. If they don't work as an earth, there should be an engine hoist part somewhere. I mean, any of this stuff will work as an earth, but pretty much any decent bit of metal that you can see is an actual earth down there as well. But there you go, so that's where the jump starting points are. Inside the near side the near side door, sorry, we've got your bonnet release just here. Bit of storage you can use underneath this passenger seat here as well. Obviously there's both the seats there swivel all the way around from these handles just here, and because it's like the slightly heavier, bit more of a heavy duty chassis, you can adjust the seats in lots of different ways, and they're nice and comfortable. Inside the habitation door, you'll see I've just repaired, literally just finished repairing the step here. It was in about four or five different pieces, all broken up, so hopefully you're happy with that. The tape that was on it was basically just holding all the pieces together, so I've managed to repair it from behind and spray it, so hopefully you're happy with how that's come out. The step comes out with this little switch just here, so that's what that is. The door as well, if I just point this out, it's a barn door style door, so you can undo this here and have just the bottom part shut if you want to, and then that same handle clips over this part inside, so it keeps it completely shut, or you can have it locked back up as it was. Totally up to you. Inside this locker just here, you can get to it from inside, just there. Quite a lot of storage in here if you should need it. These two vents just here are for your fridge, so if you've got the fridge lit up on gas like I do at the moment, if you put your hand over the top right hand side of this vent here, you should feel some hot air coming out of the little flue inside there, and that just basically proves to you that the fridge is working. Again, another one that's just storage. It might give you access, if you took all of this out, you may be able to get to the top of the boiler inside here, but we don't need to do that because the boiler drain is somewhere different, which I'll show you inside. But this vent just here is the boiler vent, so you need to take this little cover off before you start using it. At the very back, we've got a reversing camera at the top, and both of your waste and fresh drain off points. So if you wanted to drain out either the waste or the fresh tanks, you drop these from here and drain them from there. This locker just here on the off side at the back is your toilet cassette locker. So it's a pretty simple sort of design layout. This pot here at the top comes out, and the corresponding bit to that is this pipe just here. So you can see this is the flush fluid, and this is your flush fluid level not sensor, but level sort of meter. So the more you pour into here, the higher up this will go. When you actually fill this up with water, you will notice when I take this off, it will already look like it's full up. All right, but it's not. Well, it is just inside there, but obviously it's quite low. But basically, normally when you start pouring this in, because it works on a U-bend, it won't look like it's actually filling up. It will just stay at the same level. So you just need to keep on pouring until this one goes up to around the middle. That just there, you should still have a fair amount in there at the moment, but just keep pouring it. Watch this level here. Don't watch what's going on in here, basically. That's your pre-mixed pink fluid, flush fluid. To get the actual toilet cassette out, lift up on the little green tab at the bottom, and then the whole thing will then slide out. This is the bench seat style toilet, which means that the toilet itself sits frontways rather than sideways. The sideways ones mean that no, sorry, the other way around. Sideways rather than frontways. The frontways ones means that you the actual cassette itself is the standard much smaller cassette, whereas when you've got the seat that looks forwards like this, it means you get to have the bench style one, which is much bigger, which is good. So you drain it out from here, so you take this cap off and drain from there. When you're actually physically draining it out, you need to press and hold on the little green tab at the back. Every once in a while as well, it's always a good idea to have a can of silicone spray on you as a motorhome owner. You need to go around these rubber seals around the lockers, and the reason I'm showing you whilst we're here is because when you're doing that, if you also come over to the toilet cassette, you've got this little rubber seal here, which is your lip seal, which basically seals the gap between the toilet itself inside and the cassette. So if that gets too dry, essentially when you go to the toilet, it will leak past this seal and just go into the locker here rather than into the cassette. So you need to make sure that you keep on top of lubricating that. Same kind of idea with why you do the lockers, because if you don't lubricate these lockers rubber, then essentially what happens is it dries up and then allows any water that goes through it or towards it straight into this locker as well. And that's when you tend to get sort of damp problems and things like that when you don't lubricate these. So that is that. Freshwater inlet, here's this one just here. So push in and round to the left to release that, in and round to the right to lock it, and then you can get your key in there once you've done that. No doubt I'll choose the wrong key first off. Key in there. Okay, right. So it's unlocked at the moment. Where I pushed it in and turned it to the right until it stopped. Key in, turn it and take it out, and now I cannot take that off. So if I just show you, unlock, key out, now it comes out. Whilst you're lubricating the lockers as well, it's always a good idea to lubricate the little rubber seal on the back of this fresh inlet as well. Obviously we've done all of that sort of stuff as part of the habitation check now, but in a few months time or a year or whatever, just go around and lubricate all that stuff. Looks like a new inlet point here. So this is your 240 volt inlet point, which then gives you access to anything that works on the mains, including your sort of 240 volt plug sockets, heating on electric, etc. So that's that. The gas locker, you've got space for 2 of the 6 kilo propane bottles. At the moment you've just got this one in here, which is new. Pigtail's new as well, so that's 22 days, you got till 27 to replace this. So essentially all you need to know really is that you turn anti-clockwise round to the left to turn the bottle on, and clockwise around to the right to turn it off. All of the stuff in there, you don't need to worry about any of that. That's all just for our testing purposes. Make sure that you turn the bottle off before you start driving. and that is about it. So I've got it on for the minute because we've got the heating on and the fridge on and things like that, so I can show you. The diesel filling point is this one just here. You do need your ignition key to get that to open up. And I'll just jump in the cab now and show you a few bits in here. So, like I was saying, the engine battery itself on these Renault chassis sits just here in the middle of the two seats under the floor. So if you just took the carpet up, you'd see that. So that is where that is. So as I said, it's quite a nice sort of commercial chassis. It's quite a big, wide, in comparison to like the Transits and the Fiats, it's quite a lot bigger and sort of heavier feeling, because it's a bit more of a kind of, like I said, a bit more of a commercial small truck kind of chassis. The automatic is really simple how to actually use it. All you have to do is, when the ignition's on, you'll see in the middle of the screen there, it will tell you what's going on all the time. So whatever you have selected, it will show you up on the screen. So when you first turn it on, it should say N for neutral. And all you have to do to get it to go over to automatic is go once to the left, and it should come up saying automatic or A. And then if it still says NA, that means it's still in neutral. You just press up 1 to get it to go into 1. And if it says 1A up there, it means you're in automatic mode. And when you drive off, it will just select through the gears for you. You can also just push over to the left again, which will get rid of that little A, and then just basically go through the gears manually, like that. So literally just go up a gear, down a gear, and do it completely manually. If you want to go into reverse, over and down, and just basically press it like that, it will always, whatever you do, this stick will always go back to the middle position. It doesn't stay in any other position than there. So it's essentially just like a joystick, so you just press it to the one that you want to press, if that makes sense. So let me just show you. Actually, I feel like my description there has just made no sense, so let me just show you. Take the steering lock off. Okay, so put the ignition straight on. Let me turn the radio off so that doesn't. So straight away it's come up saying N. All right, so at the moment I can let my foot off the brake. I can let, you know, we're in neutral, nothing's happening. Foot on the brake, if I go left 1 like that. Okay, right, so I've just pushed up 1, and that is now selected 1. All right, so we're now essentially in first gear. If I push to the left once, if I was actually driving, or the engine was actually switched on, it will come up with a little A next to the 1 there. So then I would be able to just drive off and just leave it completely alone. If I press to the left again, the little A would disappear and show you just the 1 there like it is now. And then that's when you have to go through the gears manually and select. All right, so if you see there, I'm selecting the gears manually. If I want to go back into neutral, I just press over once to the right, and you can see there it's selected neutral, and down to the bottom right for reverse. There you go. Back into neutral, there like that. First gear, and then up the gears. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Neutral. And like I said, when the actual engine's running, you will be able to select your automatic mode. The only other thing I want to show you, which is a little bit different, is the handbrake. Sorry, not the gear stick, the handbrake. So this is a typical motorhome thing to do. Right, let me get myself in a better position. If the handbrake is in a bit of an awkward position where it is like it is now, most of the handbrakes on the motorhomes are over on the other side there next to the door. So in order for you to swivel this seat around, this handbrake needs to be in the position where it is now. So the handbrake isn't actually off, it's actually currently on and holding this vehicle where it is. But if I show you to prove that, I can lift this up and do all of this sort of stuff, but it just keeps going back down again. So that's basically showing you that it's on and it's working. If I lift it up to where it stops and then let the handbrake off, now the handbrake is totally off, because when I lift this up, it works like a normal handbrake. So now that I've set the handbrake, I can do this. Okay, if the handbrake isn't set, I won't be able to lift it up. It will just click and actually come on. Okay, but it does that, like I said, so that you can actually swivel the seat all the way around. All right, so the handbrake is on. Other bits in the cab, like I said, you've got your reversing camera there, really nice big screen so you can see that quite clearly. Single DIN Kenwood head unit, air conditioning from here. I think you've actually got cruise control as well from that little button there, but I'm not exactly sure how you use that personally, because I don't think I've used it before. But I think that's what it is. Various kind of driving aids and things on there. But the main thing's really having the air conditioning, to be fair, and the automatic gearbox is a really, really nice touch. Like I said, this is the GT line for the Telstar. So whether or not we sold this from new, I don't know, but we did sell a lot of these when they were new. I think the GT line means it's got the microwave, the heating and hot water on electric, all that sort of stuff. So it's a nice sort of high spec. There are other things as well, but I can't remember off the top of my head what they are. Okay, so when you first come into the vehicle, obviously you'll be coming in just here. The main sort of control panel, the place that sort of determines what happens, is just here as soon as you walk in. So it's a Sargent control panel, but it is sort of stamped up with Lunar's badge. So all the time that we're in here and we want the lights to work and we want you know, anything 12 volt to work, we want this little left hand button here to be down on the L. So the L stands for leisure and the V stands for vehicle. So if I press this button up to the top now and selected V, or vehicle battery, anything that I've got working on the 12 volt, which currently is the fan for the heating, or the lights or anything at all, would then be drawing power from the engine battery to do that. We obviously don't want to do that, because after a little while we're going to drain all the power out of the engine battery and won't be able to start it. So we want to steer clear of that, and we just want to use the L one, which, like I said, is your leisure battery. So once you've selected that, you can then go along and do whatever you like here, turn all the power on if you want to. So this is the light switch, so this is on at the moment, so I should be able to turn any of the lights on and they will all work. The next one is your water pump switch. So if I press up here, you'll see a little green light come up on there, and if you're actually in the vehicle, you'd be able to hear that the pump is currently running. I am going to turn that off now, though, because it's, you know, there's not enough water in the tank at the moment, because we're draining them out after the hab checks at the moment. The next one along is your battery voltage checker. So if we check the top scale here, when I press and hold this button down, if you have a look at the top scale, whatever battery we've selected over here is going to be showing us the voltage. So right up there, right towards the top at the moment for the leisure battery voltage. The next one along is the fresh water level. So if we look at the bottom scale now, completely empty, like I said, because, as I said, because it's quite cold at the moment, essentially we've been draining the vehicles out after the hab checks, which doesn't really help the videos, to be fair, because I can't show you any water coming out of anything, but it does save anything freezing up and sort of cracking and causing leaks. So that's why we're doing that at the moment. Only other thing is, if your waste tank was full, you'd have this little light here showing up, and it just basically tells you to drain it out. But that is really it. This bit here folds down to make a table with these little arms here at the bottom. Holds it out like that. Over here we've got your AV outputs up here. You've got a 240 volt socket, 12 volt socket, and an aerial point. All of that is wired up to your TV aerial booster, which is also wired up to your TV aerial itself. So to actually get that to work, you do need to, it's what's called a tilt and turn aerial. So you do need to unscrew this at the top and actually physically move it around to get it to lock on. Once you get the hang of doing that, it's really, really simple though. To turn your booster on, you've got a little on and off switch just there. And that is it. So that's all wired up to that aerial socket point there. Your standalone table is in here. So when you take that out, it will just stand right here in the middle between the two seats. I'll get back to the two switches in here in just a minute. All right. This pump just here, just so that you know, next to the freshwater inlet on the outside, you'll notice there's actually a little kind of 12-volt socket next to it. That is because you've got this little plug here. When you plug this in, the 12-volt socket there will basically be given power. You may have to press that button just there. So if I just explain, well, I'll explain this first. So when you plug this in, plug it into the point out there, drop this pump into a roll-away water tank if you've got one. If you don't have access to a hose to be plugged into that, but you do have a big roll-away fresh water tank, plug this in, drop this into your tank, and then poke this bit into the freshwater inlet hole. And essentially what will happen is the water will get sucked up through the pump and pumped into the vehicle. So that's why that's there. The other thing I want to explain is I'm pretty certain when you plug that in out there, nothing will happen at all until you press this button down here. This should give power to that 12-volt socket next to the freshwater inlet, because basically this is an internal pump and external pump switch. Okay, so down for sucking the water through from outside with this point, and up for actually drawing the water through to the taps from the internal pump. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. So that is what that is for. Really helpful to have both, because a lot of newer motorhomes are now changing over so that you can only use a plug-in point on the outside which drops into a tank. But this being on the sort of cusp of when they were changing over and having both is the best way, really, in my opinion, because if you don't have access to a roll-away fresh tank, so that you can't use that, but you do have a hose, or you do have you know, watering cans or whatever, you still have access to doing it manually through the actual hole. But if you don't have access to any hose, you do have access to that. So it's I think they should all do it like that, really. But there you go. So that is that. I'll tell you what, I'll just show you what these buttons do in here now, just before, because I'll probably forget if I don't do it now. So the one on the left there says Ultra Heat on top of it, and the one on the right says Ultra Store. So basically, these are both to do with the mains hookup bits and pieces, okay? So the Ultra Heat one on the left there, if you really want to, you can actually leave this button on all the time, because all that does is allow you to use the dial up there, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so turning that button on there that says Ultra Heat is all to do with the heating on 240 volt or your mains hookup, but just turning that switch on there doesn't do anything at all until you actually turn it off on the dial, which I'll show you in a minute. So if you want to, you can leave that one on all the time. It's probably good practice to turn them both off, to be fair, just so that you don't run into any issues, but there you go. The Ultra Store one is totally different in that you cannot leave that on all the time. If you plug a hookup cable into the vehicle and this is switched on, as soon as you hook up, the water heater is going to be heating up on electric. All right, so this is literally, there's no other button. This is the on and off switch for your hot water on electric. Okay, so to stop any confusion, to be fair, you may as well just turn both of these off when you finish with them. But yeah, so the one on the right, hot water on electric, on and off. The one on the left, heating on electric, turning the switch on, which I'll show you how to use now. All right, so that is that. So before I start talking about anything else, we'll do that bit now. So this is going to be a little bit awkward to hold the camera and talk about at the same time, but at the top there you can see there it says Ultra Heat, just like the left hand button in the cupboard there. So like I said, that switch in the cupboard literally just sends power to the Ultra Heat dial up here. So once you've turned that on, if you have a hookup cable plugged in, you can then select 500, 1000 or 2000, and that's the amount of watts that it uses to heat up. If you imagine, it's not really any use having it in watts there, to be fair. You might as well think of it as amps. So I explain this quite often in the videos, but basically, if you went to a campsite and you plugged into a 13 amp pole with your hookup, you've then essentially got 13 amps to use up before it will trip on the pole that you're plugged into. So if you imagine, well, not imagine, if you were using the heater up there on 2000, that correlates to about 8 amps. All right, now 8 amps is quite a lot. If you imagine you're plugged into a 13 amp pole, you've then only got 5 amps to play with afterwards. And if you turn this microwave on at full power, you're probably going to be near on 5 amps anyway. So I don't understand why they've got a 2000 watt point, because 8 amps from one appliance is kind of ridiculous. If I was you, I would stick to 500 or 1000. 1000 is about 4.5 amps, 500 is 2.5. So, you know, they all work just as well as each other, really. It's just if you're in a real hurry, use 1000. If you're not, just use 500. So that is that. And the next one below it is your hot water on gas. So assuming you've taken the cover off on the outside, and actually assuming that you've got some hot water in the tank, which again in a minute I'll show you how to do, all you have to do is turn the dial once and set your temperature. So that goes from 30 all the way through to 70, and literally just wait half an hour or so and you have hot water. So at the moment the boiler, I know for a fact, is empty, so I'm going to turn that off. If you try and light the boiler up, or if you light the boiler up with no water in it, it will overheat. There's no kind of safety cut-off that won't allow you to do it if there's no water in it, so you do have to make sure of that yourself. But it is just really important to remember. Again, like I said, I'll show you in just a minute how to make sure it is full. Oh, God's sake, sorry, keep on knocking that thing over with my arm. So the other bits we've got here: microwave isolator, on and off just there, a 240 volt socket, and a light switch just here for the lights next to us above these bits and pieces here. So that's what all that is in there. So I hope that makes sense. Top dial is for the electric heating, the bottom dial is for the gas boiler, and like I said, you've got ultra heat is the isolator for the heating dial I just showed you, and ultra store is the electric water heating on and off. Okay, microwave, as I said, probably uses about a maximum of 5 amps at any time, so just bear that in mind when you're using it. And you've got your isolator switch there. Whilst we're on the subject of sort of heating and hot water and things, I will show you the only other way that you can heat this van up, which is the way I'm doing it right now. So this is the only heater in the vehicle. This one unit is, even though the dial for the heating on electric is up there, the elements that actually create the heat are just inside here at the back. All right, so this is a Truma Ultra Heat, and it does say 230 volts, but it's a gas and mains system. So if I turn this off like that, all I did there to turn it off was just literally turn this dial back to 0. All that's happening now, so the flame has gone out. Just before I turned it off, you would have seen a flame through there. The flame's gone out, and I've left the fan running, which is by pressing this little button here over to the left and selecting your number. So I can turn it up, down. All that fan does, which you can see just at the back there, the fan draws the hot air that we're creating, the heat that we're creating in this little chamber here, and pumps it around to any of these little circular vents that are dotted around. When you turn this, it will stop the air coming through. You do not want to do that, because there's only 3 vents in the entire vehicle, I think. So if you isolate those, you know, you're going to affect the airflow. So if I was you, just please just leave those how they are. So there's one in the bathroom, there's one there, and I think there's one down there in front of the driver's seat as well. But basically, like I said, just leave that fan running for sort of, you know, maybe 5 minutes or so once you've turned it off. It's always good practice. To light it up, all you have to do is turn this around here. You've got an automatic ignition, so you'll straight away, you'll hear it. You can just about see it on the camera there as well. All I'm going to do now is press down on about two or three, and you'll see the pilot flame kick in. So there's your pilot flame. Now all I'm going to do, because I've already had it on for a little bit, I'm going to have to turn it right up. I'm going to lift it up and turn it around to sort of 8 or 9. If you watch what happens when I do that, if I get the flame there, I've now lifted up. I'm going to turn it around to 8 or 9. So you saw there, it kind of blew a little bit, and then the right hand side there has now kicked in. So the flame, the pilot flame is just a little flame down here, and the main flame kicks in all the way across. So that is all you have to do. Keep your eye on that little flame there, make sure it stays on, and when you want to turn it off, all the way around to 0, no more flame. Like I said, leave that fan going for about 5 minutes once you've turned it off. The fridge, I'll tell you what, before I start on the fridge, sorry about all this kind of toing and froing, but I just want to talk to you about how you use the boiler, so how you fill the boiler up. So assuming you've got some fresh water in the tank, turn the pump switch on, the top one, so go up. You then need to make sure, I've already turned it off now, but down the bottom of this, under the oven, you've got, it's a bit of a random place to put it really, but that is where your boiler drain off point is. Okay, so that's what that little yellow tab is. If I lifted that so it was facing upright or vertical, all the water that's inside the boiler would drain out onto the floor. So I know for a fact that at the moment it's completely empty because I've only just put that down. So now, or the next time you fill the van up with water and turn the pump on, if you just come over to the tap here and pull the handle up over onto the top left, just wait for the water to start coming through. I can guarantee that no water will come through this tap for about a minute or so, but as soon as it starts coming through, you can know for a fact that the boiler is full of water. The reason for that is, so if I just quickly explain it, you've got the water tank, the pump, then the taps. So that's how the cold water side of things works. Tank, pump, tap. All right, the hot water side of things goes tank, pump, boiler, tap. So if the boiler is empty of water, you won't get anything coming through the hot side of the tap until it is. Okay, so that's how you fill the boiler up. Okay, so the fridge. I just realised as well, I didn't actually tell you why you drain them out. If it was going to get really, really cold outside, and it was going to, you know, if you weren't using the vehicle at all and it was going to get seriously cold outside, it's just always a good idea to drain the boiler out from that point in there, just to stop any leaks forming, basically. But, you know, it's as simple as that. Okay, so the fridge. It's a three-way fridge, meaning it works on gas, mains electric, and 12 volt. So at the moment, I haven't got a mains cable plugged in, and the engine isn't running. So I can't use it on electric or 12 volt. Well, I can't use it on mains or 12 volt. So the only way I can do it is the gas. So all I've had to do, so I've just turned it off, all I had to do to actually light it up on gas is literally just that. Just literally turn it once and it will light up by itself as long as the gas is on. If you do have a mains cable plugged into the vehicle, go down to this one here and you get a little green light come on if it is working. And if your engine's running, go down to the bottom to the 12 volt, and again you'll get a green light if it's working. So the way that you actually have to use these fridges is either pre-cool it first with the gas or the mains electric, and it will take a few hours or so to actually get cold, and then just turn it down to the 12 volt when you're driving. So the 12 volt is the only way that you can use this fridge when you're driving, because obviously you can't have the gas on, you can't have a mains cable plugged in. And the way that it works, again, I feel like I'm rambling on a little bit, but the way that it works, when you start the engine up and the engine's running whatsoever, the alternator charges the engine battery But in any decent motorhome conversion, you've also got what's called a split relay, which sends power from that sort of alternator to engine battery through to the leisure battery and also to the fridge. So that any time that you're driving, you're giving your leisure battery a good charge up, and you're also being able to keep the fridge cold via that power. So that is how that works. The cooker system, it's a spin flow caprice. This is just a very, very standard unit here. So you've got the 4-burner hob at the top, grill and oven. The ignitions for every single one of those is that button just there. The grill needs to be open when you use it, but I really don't feel like I need to explain much about that because it's just like any household cooker. There's nothing special or different about them. So that is that. I'm going to turn the fan off now for the heating. And the last bits really are in the bathroom. So the shower point is simply take this out from here and put it up in that little holder up there. If you don't want to use it as a shower, obviously just by all means leave that where it is. These are the 2 taps for that. The little glass thing opens up just there so you can use it as a little cupboard. The only thing I really need to show you, to be fair, I mean the rest of it's all pretty self-explanatory, is the toilet. So the flush is just a case of pressing this button here. So it probably wants filling up. And you drain it into the cassette with this handle. So that's open, that's closed. I know that might seem quite brief, but when you do it a few times, you'll realise just how easy it is. Yeah, you shouldn't have any problems with that at all. So, hopefully that makes sense. Right, so if there's anything you think I've missed out or anything you'd like going over again, just let us know. But I think I've pretty much covered everything, and we look forward to seeing you soon to collect your van. Thanks very much.